Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Projection through Visualization. Before we get started, I just want to thank our newest patron on Patreon, Treehouse, who is an astral master. And they'll get commercial free advanced videos and be able to talk back and forth with me on Patreon. If that's something that is of interest to you in supporting Astral Club, you'll find a link in the description. Next up, if you're on the verge of astral projection or it's just something that you're very much interested in finally achieving, I'm offering private lessons. If that's something that is of interest to you, you'll find an email in the description and send me an email and I'll go ahead and give you more information about that. Projection through visualization. I'm going to be referring to two different basic sources as well as, of course, my experience. The first is from a book called Leaving the Body by D. Scott Rogo, R-O-G-O, mostly from chapter 7, and another book from Richard Greene, the Handbook of Astral Power. So, visualization and mental imagery have been great psychological mysteries throughout mankind's history. I suspect going right on back to the days when we lived in caves, and perhaps even going back to our ancient ancestors that lived in the trees. We still know relatively little about the mind's inner pictures and the power of mental imagery. Our scientists, using MRIs, can tell when someone's having a religious experience because in that MRI machine, they can see certain areas of the brain lighting up that don't ordinarily light up unless that type of experience is occurring. So it has a very real presence in our physical brains. Let's go back to the ancient Egyptians. They held that if you had images in your mind, you could materially affect the physical universe, and that one could bring about a desired event merely by visualizing it. They called it Hermetic magic. It was a philosophy that, by legend, was developed by their god, Thoth. Thoth's magical philosophies believed that if one could control one's mental imagery, then one could control not only your life or your surroundings, but the actual world. It was also believed that spiritual development was inherently related to mental imagery, and that the uses that one can make of it determines one's direction in becoming one way type of spiritual person or another type of spiritual person. Usually, the light or the dark were the ancient beliefs. Another old occult belief was that by holding a mental image in your mind, you became imbued by the qualities of that visualized object. That reminds me a lot of the old warrior mythos in South America and Africa and some other areas of the world, where if you consumed the heart of a brave warrior that you defeated, that his strength and courage would then be infused into you. These procedures are pointing in the same direction. The process of visualization makes us forget our bodies because we are concentrating, our minds are elsewhere. And it allows us to become independent of the burden of the flesh and material world. This disembodied state then permits the student to better explore the nature of spiritual reality and learn from it. Naturally, for our purposes, the process of visualization is going to aid us in achieving full astral projection by visualizing as closely as possible to the real event what it's going to be like in our minds, such that our minds will permit us to do this act that we call astral projection. That our subconscious minds, for instance, will align with our conscious mind and allow us to project our consciousness away from our physical body. Now, Greene believed that there was 5 basic steps in perfecting this visualization process. The first was to develop the ability to activate the imagination. And we'll get into an actual exercise in a minute. Next up, learning the correct breathing as an adjunct to the exercise. And by correct breathing, we're talking about yogic breathing. Number 3, learn to transfer your consciousness into an inanimate object. 4th, learn to project your consciousness away from the body to any perspective you choose. And lastly, in step 5, practice projecting the mind totally away from the body, which is, of course, our end goal in learning to astral project. But let's go back to step 1 right now. Step 1, as you recall, was develop the ability to activate the imagination. The exercise itself is relatively simple, which are typically the best exercises. I have problems with certain tapes and methods that are extraordinarily complex. I find that simpler is quite often better. The conscious mind may find complex methods very fascinating. However, we need to get the subconscious mind on board, and the subconscious mind might be symbolized as a 2-year-old. 2-year-olds do not understand complex instructions, will be confused by them, and perhaps will even actively combat or fight you because they are confused and they're rejecting what it is you're trying to do. So how do you teach a 2-year-old? Well, you keep it simple. You show them clear pictures of what you want to accomplish. You have positive emotions associated with those pictures. And then you have repetition. That's how 2-year-olds learn. That's how your subconscious learns. So in this exercise, you want to start in a room where you'll be undisturbed. If you have to, wear headphones if you can't find yourself in a place that's quiet. You don't want, the neighbor shouting next door or somebody mowing the lawn right next to your room or any other kind of distractions. So you want a quiet place, and if putting in, some sort of earplugs or putting on headphones or whatever works, just do that. Then you want to sit in a comfortable chair facing a bare wall. Nothing fancy, no pictures or anything else, just a bare wall. And most walls are painted in neutral colors. So they're pretty boring, which is what we want. Make sure you move any furniture or anything else that is in the way of your viewing the wall. We want no outside distractions around your area of the wall. Then you should place a simple object, a vase, a book, whatever. I used to use a candle, a single white candle. I would often light it, sometimes I wouldn't. The main point is boring. You don't want fancy. It has to be simple. Then you must stare at that object until you have virtually memorized everything about it, including its shape, design, color, contours, what have you. Once you feel you've got it all memorized, then you close your eyes and visualize that object and the room itself. Do not merely imagine this, but recreate the room and the object in your mind's eye in proper perspective and proportion. Do not imagine the mentally created room in your head, or to speak, but out there. Just, you have to do it as though you had x-ray vision and were seeing it through your closed eyelids. Keep this up until the image fades and you can no longer hold the image. Then open your eyes, refresh your memory, see what the room is like, and repeat the process. Once you have perfected that basic process, then we want to proceed to step 2, which is learning the correct breathing along with this exercise. Yogic tradition, which goes back thousands and thousands of years in India, recommends a simplified breathing process called Pranayama, in which one inhales to the count of 5, holds for 6, exhales while counting to 4, then holds to the count of 6. So once again, you will inhale through your nose to the count of 5, slowly, no jerking breaths. You will hold that breath to the count of 6. You then exhale through your mouth to the count of 4. Then you hold to the count of 6 before you start the whole process over again. The belief here is that by controlling the breathing, you're doing several things. First, you're inhaling the power of the universe. And by controlling this breathing, you are starting to put yourself into an altered state, which is a state that you want to be in to help you change your mental focus. We can then proceed to step 3, which is learn to transfer your consciousness into an inanimate object. To learn this skill, and it's a favorite taught by many in the visualization field, place a cup or other simple object across the room from where you're sitting. You can sit with your eyes open or closed. It's up to you. Concentrate on that object. Try to merge with it until you actually become one with it. The identification should be so complete that you experience yourself as the cup. So what we're learning to do here is transferring our consciousness away from awareness in the physical body to something outside the physical body, which comes quite in handy when one is astral projecting. Now, it's not as difficult really as it sounds. By focusing your whole attention on this object, you will eventually find that your perception of the room and even your own body will momentarily blur. This is a good sign. So keep practicing until your consciousness is aware of the object and your own mind. By continual practice, you'll find that you'll not only be able to differentiate yourself from the object you're focusing on, but you'll be able to really perfect a skill that has been taught in the schools of Buddhism for thousands of years as well. Uh, and the goal of this, it was meant to show the student how to perceive themselves as independent from their environment and to get out of the habit of what they considered false categorical thinking. In other words, by seeing the world from another viewpoint, it becomes easier to discard old habits that perhaps were old thought patterns that were holding you back. And that was very important to the students of Buddha. In step 4, we want to learn to project our consciousness away from the body to any perspective that we choose. You can begin by transferring your consciousness out of your body to the other side of the room. The imagery in this exercise could be virtually identical to what we discussed in step 3. But in this case, you are doing away with that focal object as a crutch. Now, your thoughts and ideas should now stem from where your mental consciousness is placed. You should be able to think from that spot. You should also feel as if you are really located where the mental consciousness is. Now, Greene called this mental traveling, and it's very similar to processes that were used by old-time hypnotists when they were doing their experiments in clairvoyance. But once you have accomplished this transference of consciousness, you can terminate the session by willing your consciousness back to your physical body. Last up, projecting the mind totally away from the body. Begin by sitting or lying down as usual. Clear your mind of all extraneous thoughts. Visualize your body surrounded by an oval shell of light. You might also visualize your body surrounded by your soul body. Now visualize this vehicle floating up and away from the physical. To return, you just need to visualize the phantom body returning back to your old physical home, your body, and you will return. Re-entry will most probably be spontaneous. And we've mentioned that in Astral Projection in the past. We said that if you wanted to extend your astral projection, you didn't want to think about your physical body. But certainly astral projection and this exercise, the best way to return or completely reintegrate is to think about your physical body. Now, I just want to emphasize that these exercises are exercises that have been done for thousands of years. If you're having any difficulty in your physical or mental health, I would probably avoid some of these exercises as they might be too taxing for you. I believe that these particular processes will help a lot of people to overcome a barrier that they've experienced concerning astral projection. I think they'll be particularly invaluable to people who find themselves in the vibrational stage, but can't get out. And I think the reason they can't is they haven't developed the will and the ability to concentrate and to project their astral self to a remote point, i.e., a point outside of their physical body. And that with experience in these exercises, I think you'll find that when you hit that vibrational stage, rather than be trapped and to be frustrated in the fact that you can't get out, that you'll be able now to use the discipline learned through this. These are very simplified exercises, by the way. There's much more involved and complex ones, but I find that it's best to keep things simple as much as possible. If you like this, please hit the like button, share it with those of like mind. Subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, there's videos now every Wednesday afternoon, and we still have the ones on Saturday morning. If you have any questions or you want to share some processes that have worked for you in visualization, please leave them in the comment section. They'll be of help to everyone in Astral Club. And as always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.